I'm going to show you an example of a Reddit ad campaign that I ran recently, and I'm going to show you a couple problems that came up with it, as well as some big successes. So here I am in the Reddit ad dashboard. If we scroll down to the bottom here, we can see this one campaign that is on. We have about 7,000 impressions. We have an effective cost per mil of 2.92. So to put this into perspective, this is actually quite cheap. You would expect your CPM maybe to be $5, $10, $30 on other channels such as LinkedIn and Facebook. So Reddit is very cost effective. We can also measure cost in terms of cost per click, and we see here that overall it's a 68 cent cost per click, and that gets even lower when we look at some of the different ad groups and specific ad types. CTR of 0.3%. That's about typical. Usually you get around 0.5% click through rate on different channels. But what we're really finding here is because Reddit is fairly new to advertising, that it hasn't been saturated yet, and the costs are quite low. The other big thing to note about Reddit is it's kind of like using Facebook back in the day where you were able to target specific groups. You can't do that with Facebook anymore unless you use some external tools such as Lead Enforce to target groups. But what Reddit ads does is it enables you to target specific communities and have highly relevant ads showing to the most applicable target audience that you could possibly have. So here with this tab, we're in campaigns, then we can go into ad groups, and then we can go into specific ads. Now, one thing you'll notice here is it's not actually showing you what the ads look like. It is breaking down the data here. So we can see, for example, that this video has a lower CPM than this image because it's probably just much more engaging to the audience. However, in order to see the ad, we'd have to actually go into edit ad. And now we can see what the ad looks like. We can play it. We can change the destination URL. We can change the call to action. By default, Reddit will have disallow comments, but I've allowed comments. And the reason is because a lot of people aren't used to seeing ads on Reddit, so they might heckle you and say bad things about you. You can see that the different post types here were video, image, and carousel. In this case, it was a video. So the same thing with ad group. So I'm here in the ad groups tab, and I'm not able to see things like who I'm targeting, what the budgeting is. In order to do that again, I have to go to the edit ad group option. And it's going to take a little bit of time to load. Now we can see, okay, the target audience is about 11,000 to 14,000. I'm targeting just this subreddit community for Udemy. And the reason my audience is somewhat low, not extremely low, is because I'm only targeting specific countries. So these rich countries where people speak English predominantly. If I went with a global campaign, which I am simultaneously running a global campaign, the reach is going to get up to an audience of around 22,000. So you have to make that judgment call. Now, one of the reasons that I've created a separate campaign for rich countries effectively is because I don't want the algorithm to automatically disproportionately show my ads in lower placements, cheaper placements in countries where people don't have as much money. So I'm trying to go with a truly global campaign, and to do that, that means I need to have separate campaigns where people are wealthier to have more distribution geographically. Um, we can see here we have some different options here for excluding communities, for excluding certain keywords. I have a budget here of $10. Now, because Reddit and this particular subreddit, the reach isn't as high as with something like Facebook and is not as broad a targeting as interest targeting on Facebook, I don't actually approach my budget. So that's one of the reasons I ended up going with a global campaign. You can see the strategy here was maximize clicks, but you could have gone with manual bidding, and I set a cost cap of $1. As you're analyzing your Reddit campaigns, one of the important things to do is to go to your breakdowns. So we can see breakdown by country, for example, by community, by interest, by placement. This is going to be particularly important when you're running on multiple subreddits and see, okay, well, which targeting is most relevant to me. And that, in my case, it's only one subreddit, so it's irrelevant. But something like country would be interesting because often what I find when I run these campaigns is I'll get a disproportionate number of clicks from certain countries that I don't want. And it's not that I don't want any clicks from that country, it's just that I don't want it that heavily biased towards that country. But one thing that Reddit is doing a good job of actually is distributing it geographically. So you can see here I got 3 clicks from the US, which is a very large country. Great Britain, 3 clicks, even though it's a smaller country. So it's fairly distributed, which is nice. That's typically not what you see in something like Facebook. You run a click campaign on Facebook, you're going to see most of your clicks are coming from India, Bangladesh, countries where they can get very cheap clicks. So in that case, I trust Reddit more in some ways because it's new and it's less algorithmic. Often, what Facebook will do is it'll algorithmically give you whatever you want, even when it doesn't make sense in the human sense. Now, despite the excellent economics of this ad, low CPMs, low cost per click, etc., there is a problem with it, and it's when I did quality assurance here. So here you can see a screenshot from an iPhone. Now I tried to screenshot from a Android device, and it wouldn't let me for security reasons. But for some reason, you can bypass that with an iPhone. You can see that my image is barely visible, and when somebody clicks the image, it doesn't load the image, it loads the URL. So there's some definite quality issues here. And when we look at the video, we have the same problem. Here's the video, and it has a play button, but when you click it, it goes to the URL. So this video is basically not being seen at all. So the weight of these ads, what's generating the clicks is not the imagery or the videos, it's pretty much just the text because nobody can see the imagery at all. So what this tells us is we need to be careful about what parameters we're using to make our creative. And basically what that means is you want to go with 1 by 1 for images is ideal. So for example, 1080 pixels from by 1080 pixels. And when you do videos, what you want to do is go with 4 to 5 aspect ratio. To get more details on the best ad specs, you can go here. So the original source I went to for the best ad specs wasn't the best. It wasn't actually ideal because Reddit is a mobile first company. So that means you should make your creative for mobile first and then worry about desktop later. And this URL here is going to show you, okay, what's ideal for image ads? What are the limitations? What about for video ads, carousel ads? Premium takeover units, promoted posts, etc., vertical placements, all the different calls to action. So I'd recommend checking this out. And if you have time, I also recommend you watch this video, which is basically best practices that Reddit provides for you. Now, a lot of the times when you listen to this from other companies, they're just going to give you nonsensical answers that basically just mean do what's going to give us more money, and that's not what you want to do. That's not what is in your best interest. But Reddit here is actually giving you honest, good, transparent feedback, such as if you're trying to increase your brand awareness, put your logo in the top left because the research shows that that has the most significant impact on raising awareness lift. They're also going to give you other advice like the aspect ratios I was talking about. And they'll give you some other pointers. For example, when you create video ads, you want to make sure you have subtitles or captions because people are going to be listening on mute. And there's also just some good, solid copywriting advice. For example, putting your brand name in the headline of the advertisement that you're running. That's the kind of advice that you get from David Ogilvy, and it's nice to see that Reddit is actually giving you solid recommendations, is not just nonsensical answers trying to get more money out of your wallet. And lastly, one of the things they recommend is that when you do image ads, you go with something that's highly polished. So, what do we mean by that? We mean like high production quality, good graphic design, nicely branded, professional. But they say with videos, you can actually be more experimental. So, this might be something that looks like it was made from home, like a webcam recording where the lighting isn't perfect. So, be more experimental with video and perhaps a little less experimental, more professional when it comes to image ads.